So here is the main overview page for the MCC Packaging Line Project. As you can see, we have multiple indicator lights on the bottom left here that will show which conveyors are running. From the bases conveyors to the lids conveyors to the infeeds, the blue light indicates if Factory I/O is in fact connected and running. These will be a dark green if any of the conveyors are not running. Here we have the faults page. As you may notice, there have already been several faults that have been acknowledged. We have two ways of acknowledging the fault. Either we can acknowledge all of the alarms at once, or we can acknowledge one at a time. In this case, I will only acknowledge the one alarm, as there's only one to acknowledge. Turning to the overview page, I will log in as the operator and start here as it is the user with the lowest set of permissions. Notice how now we have access to the logout button in the main menu screen. More screens will be available for access with different users. As you can see here on the main menu screen, there is an emergency stop indicator. This will flash red when the emergency stop is actuated. The emergency stop will also cause a fault when actuated. Here we also have soft start and stop buttons. On the left here, we have our counters for the various conveyors, and in the middle, we have the green column is to indicate that those conveyors are running, the orange to indicate faults, and the red to indicate that any given conveyor is not running. Each of these counters is associated to a conveyor. The bottom, however, for the infeed does not have any counters attached to them as that product is not sorted. As you can see, upon stopping the project, all of the red lights have lit up. This is how the machine should behave. After pressing start, all of the conveyors are started as none of them have been manually disabled. Now we will log in as our maintenance user. The maintenance user has access to the drive info screen, as well as the previously shown faults in main menu. As you can see here, it is popped up on the overview screen. This left column will show us the runtime hours for each drive. The right column shows the number of faults that each drive has encountered. Next to that, you will see 6 buttons associated with manually disabling each line. There is not manual disable buttons for drives 8 and 7. This is because disabling either of those drives would shut down the machine to prevent any form of jamming. Now disabling drive 2 will cause drive 2 to be disabled. Drive 2 is associated to the blue lid conveyor, and as you can see, a blue lid is passed through and will go to the reject section. This is how the machine should behave, as if any line is down, it will simply pass that product along to prevent a jam, if that product ends up on the line. As you can see here, it is shown that the conveyor was stopped. We will now re-enable this line, and as you can see, that line is now enabled once again. You will notice that the blue lid is now sorted into its proper place. Heading back to the main menu, you will notice that it is now indicated to be running. For our last set of permissions, we will log in as the admin, as it has the most privileges out of all the users. The admin will gain access to the fault testing menu. This menu is associated to test faults by manually forcing a fault onto the drive. This does not hurt the drive. It is instead meant to test what the machine would do when faced with a fault. As you can see, we can force faults onto all of the drives as well as access all of the pages from this menu. Here we will force a fault onto drive 4. As you can see, the green lids conveyor has gotten a fault. The alarms menu has popped up. Now here you can see, this is our green lids stack lights. And as you will notice, the red and yellow lights are on, indicating that the line is no longer running and it is faulted. As you may have seen in the background, green lids have passed through, as they should. The yellow fault light is now on in the HMI as well. We can reset these faults manually from this menu only. The green light is now turned back on, as it should, as that conveyor is now running since that fault has been cleared. Up here we have our shutdown button. This will allow us to exit out of the HMI completely should there be a necessity for it, such as changing the program or loading a new program, or to check for internal settings within the panel view itself. We will now log out of the admin, and that will conclude the MCC packaging line HMI portion of this video. And lastly, here we have the factory IO scene for the MCC packaging line. Now, a few clips are sprinkled throughout the rest of this video to indicate its connection to the HMI. But here's the full scene working smoothly and properly without failure. As you can see, it is efficient at what it does and handles several different pieces to sort at the same time. It accomplishes this by using both vision sensors and the use of sorting tables to separate each part into its respective lane. And lastly, thank you for watching this video presentation on the MCC packaging line.